I've trained him well. What if he decides to leave one day?
Leave and go where? He has no family, no home, no inheritance, no one who will welcome him.
Besides, he believes I rescued him. I didn't adopt a son. I acquired a servant.
No. Oh, no. It can't be.
Stay with me as I tell you the unforgettable story of Onome, an abandoned child who was adopted by a family who wanted an unpaid servant with no route of escape. A boy they believed would never find freedom until fate turned everything around in an unbelievable manner. Kindly take a moment to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and please let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Thank you. Let's get right into the story. The rain had refused to stop for 3 days. It poured over the rusty zinc roofs of Ogara like the heavens themselves were grieving. The gutters overflowed, the roads dissolved into thick brown mud, and the entire town hid indoors. Only one person walked through the storm, Madame Eriatake Orenero. Everyone in Ogara knew her. She was a widow with 3 grown children, Orenerede, Ejiro, and Akpobome. They all lived in her large compound, yet none of them contributed to the running of the home. They spent their days arguing, eating, sleeping, and depending on the income from the late Mr. Orenero's rental properties. Madame Eriatake hated hiring housemaids, not because she couldn't afford them, because they always left. One would cry after 3 months and run back to her village. Another would escape in the middle of the night. One even climbed the back fence. They are all ungrateful, Madame Eriatake always hissed. I feed them, I clothe them, yet they leave. Her daughter Ejiro once laughed. Maybe because you treat them like prisoners. Madame Eriatake glared at her. If I had someone with nowhere else to go, she smiled, that person would never leave. Nobody understood what she meant, not until that rainy evening. As she hurried past an abandoned market stall, she heard it, a baby's cry, weak, barely audible beneath the rain. She stopped. Another cry. She followed the sound until she found an old raffia basket tucked beneath a wooden table. Inside, a tiny baby boy, perhaps only a few weeks old, wrapped in a faded wrapper. His sleeves were turning blue from cold. Madame Eriatake looked around. No one, no mother, no note, no witnesses. The child reached out his tiny hand. For several seconds, she stared without emotion. Then something crossed her mind. Not compassion, an idea. She slowly smiled. A child with nobody, she whispered, belongs to whoever picks him. She lifted the baby, not because she loved him, because she knew 20 years of free labor. The police announced the discovery, churches made announcements, radio stations asked if anyone had lost a child. Weeks became months. Nobody came. Madame Eriatake completed the adoption. She named him Onome. God gave him to us, she proudly told neighbors. People praised her. What a wonderful woman. What a generous heart. What kindness. Every compliment made her smile. Only she knew the truth. The first few years were peaceful. Onome was too young to understand anything. He called Madame Eriatake Mama. He followed her everywhere. Whenever she entered the kitchen, he tottled after her. Whenever she sat outside, He rested his tiny head on her lap. Sometimes neighbors smiled. He loves you so much. Madam Eretake would force a smile. Deep inside she thought, enjoy this affection while you can. Soon you will start earning your food. By the time Onome turned 6, his childhood ended. Mama, can I play football with the other children? She didn't even look up. Did the plates wash themselves? No, Mama. Then why are you talking about football? He quietly picked up the basin. At 7, he swept the entire compound every morning before he went to school. At 8, he washed everyone's clothes, including those of Ogenevedi, who was already 31 years old. If one shirt remained dirty, slap. You useless boy. At 10, he cooked. He polished everyone's shoes, ironed everyone's clothes, washed everyone's cars, cleaned every room, fed the goats, bought food from the market, disposed of rubbish, massaged Madam Eretake's leg every night before she slept. If anything went wrong, it was always Onome's fault. One afternoon, Akpobome misplaced his phone. He stormed into the sitting room. Onome, the boy ran from the kitchen. Yes, brother. Where is my phone? I don't know. The first punch landed on his face. You thief! I didn't take it. Another punch. Ejiro joined in. You've been eyeing that phone. I swear I didn't touch it. Madam Eretake entered. Instead of stopping them, she picked up a broom. You've become bold enough to steal? She flogged him until the broom broke. Hours later, Akpobome found the phone inside his own wardrobe. Nobody apologized. Instead, Madam Eretake looked at Onome. You should have reminded him where he kept it. At school, things weren't much better. His uniform had faded from countless washings. His sandals were patched with wire. Other children mocked him. Houseboy, slave, servant. He never fought back. He simply smiled. One teacher noticed, Mr. Eroto, the mathematics teacher. One day he called Onome after class. Who helps you with your homework? No one, sir. Then who solved these difficult questions? I did. Mr. Eroto stared at him. Again, Onome solved another problem. Then another. Then another. The teacher was speechless. This boy was brilliant. A rare gift hidden beneath torn clothes and tired eyes. From that day onward, Mr. Eroto quietly began helping him. He gave him old textbooks, allowed him to stay after school to study, and sometimes slipped him food when he noticed Onome had come to class hungry. Never let anyone convince you that your circumstances defined your future, he would say. Onome treasured every word. He returned home each day, hid the books beneath his thin mattress, and studied late into the night after everyone had gone to bed. He read by the light of a flickering kerosene lamp because Madam Eretake refused to let him keep the electric bulb on. Wasting my electricity, she would shout. Sleep, tomorrow you will wake up by 4. Onome obeyed. But after everyone slept, he lit the lamp again. He studied, he dreamed, and he prayed. He had no idea that those quiet nights were preparing him for a future none of them could imagine. Onome's routine became almost unbearable. Every morning he woke up at exactly 4 o'clock. Before the first cock crowed, before anyone else opened their eyes, he swept the entire compound, boiled water for Madam Eretake's bath, washed the dishes left from the previous night, cooked breakfast, ironed school uniforms, then rushed to school, often arriving just before the gate closed. If he came home with 99% in an examination, Madam Eretake would ask, "So who got 100?" If he scored 100, she would say, "Books don't cook food. Go and pound the yam." Nothing he did was ever enough. One Saturday morning, his classmates were gathered at the football field for the local inter-school tournament. Onome had been selected to represent his school. It was the first time in years he had been excited about something. He approached Madam Eretake carefully. "Mama, what? My school has a football match today." "So?" "The principal asked me to come." She didn't even raise her head from the vegetables she was slicing. "The market won't go to itself." "But Mama," she dropped the knife. Her eyes narrowed. "You are arguing with me?" "No." "Then carry those baskets." Onome lowered his head. "Yes, Mama." From across the compound, Ejiro laughed. "The servant thinks he's a football star." The others burst into laughter. Onome quietly lifted two heavy baskets onto his shoulders and followed Madam Eretake to the market. That afternoon, his school won. His teammates celebrated. His name remained on the list of players, but the space beside it read "absent." Months later, another opportunity came, a statewide academic competition. The winner would receive a full university scholarship. Mr. Eroto personally filled out Onome's application. "You can win this." Onome smiled for the first time in weeks. "I'll make you proud, sir." The competition was scheduled for a Saturday. When Madam Eretake heard about it, she laughed. "So you will leave my housework and go and answer questions?" "Mama, if I win." I mean, when I try." She stood up. "You think education will make you bigger than my own children?" Onome froze. The words pierced him. She walked closer. "You came into this house with nothing." She tapped his chest. "You will leave with nothing." Then she tore the competition letter into tiny pieces and threw them into the air. The papers floated down like dead leaves. "Now go and wash the generator." Mr. Eroto waited all day at the competition venue. Onome never came. The teacher was worried. The following Monday, he found the boy quietly sweeping the school compound before assembly. "Why didn't you come?" Onome forced a smile. "I couldn't." The teacher understood immediately. He looked at the bruises on the boy's arm. He asked no further questions. Instead, he placed a gentle hand on Onome's shoulder. "Don't worry. Opportunities have a way of returning to those who prepare for them." Years passed. Onome completed secondary school as the best graduating student. The principal announced his name before the entire school. Students clapped. Teachers stood to applaud. Parents cheered. Everyone expected Madam Eretake to beam with pride. Instead, she remained seated with folded arms. As soon as they got home, she threw his certificate onto the floor. "Congratulations." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Now that you've finished school, you will have even more time to work." His heart sank. He had secretly hoped things would change. They became worse. There was no more school to escape to. Now he worked from dawn until midnight, cleaning, cooking, repairing fences, carrying bags of cement, painting walls, running errands for all three children, who were now fully grown adults but behaved like royalty. None of them had stable jobs. None of them wanted to work. They all depended on the rent from their late father's properties. And they depended on Onome if Ejiro wanted a drink. Onome! If Ogenere misplaced his slippers. Onome! If Akpobome wanted roasted corn. Onome! Sometimes they called him from 3 different directions at once. If he answered one person first, the others shouted, "You've become proud!" One hot afternoon, Onome returned home from the market, carrying 3 heavy bags of rice on his shoulders. His shirt was soaked with sweat. As he entered the compound, he heard voices from inside the sitting room. The gate had been left slightly opened. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. But then he heard his own name. Madam Eretake was speaking. "I've trained him well." Her children laughed. Ogenere asked, "What if he decides to leave one day?" Madam Eretake chuckled confidently. "Leave and go where? He has no family, no home, no inheritance, no one who will welcome him. Besides, he believes I rescued him." The room erupted with laughter. Then she said the words that shattered whatever love Onome still had for her. "I didn't adopt a son. I acquired a servant." Onome stood outside the door. His hands trembled. The bags of rice slipped from his shoulders and hit the ground with a loud thud. Everyone inside fell silent. For the first time in his life, he understood exactly who he was to them. Not family, not a son, not even a human being worthy of love, just a servant they had planned to keep forever. Without saying a single word, Onome picked up the bags again. He carried them into the kitchen, finished cooking dinner, served everyone their food, washed the plates, locked the gate, swept the compound. Then, long after midnight, when the entire house was asleep, he lay on his thin mattress, staring into the darkness. A single tear rolled down his cheek, then another. For hours, he couldn't sleep. But before dawn, he made the first decision that truly belonged to him. He whispered to himself, "They may have decided who I was yesterday, but they will not decide who I become tomorrow." That quiet promise would change not only his life, but the fate of everyone in that house. Onome did not sleep that night. At the first call to prayer echoed from a distant mosque and roosters began crowing across Ogara. He was already outside sweeping the compound. Nothing about him looked different. He still answered when they called. He still washed their clothes, still cooked their meals, still bowed his head whenever Madam Eretake insulted him. But inside, something had changed forever. He had stopped hoping they would love him. Now, he had only one goal: freedom. That same week, fate knocked quietly. Mr. Eroto met him outside the school gate. "You finished secondary school?" "Yes, sir." "What are you doing these days?" Onome smiled bitterly. "Working." "I can see that." The teacher reached into his leather bag and brought out a folded newspaper. "There's a national scholarship examination in Benin City." Onome's eyes widened. The winners will receive full university sponsorship, accommodation, feeding allowance, everything. His heart skipped. But Mr. Eroto interrupted. "I know. You will say your mother won't allow it." Onome lowered his eyes. "I don't even have transport money." The teacher smiled. "I'll pay for everything." Onome's lips trembled. No, sir, you've already done too much." "I haven't. I've simply invested in someone who deserves a chance." The examination was scheduled for a Tuesday. Mr. Eroto had already thought of everything. He secretly registered Onome. paid the transport fare, even arranged for him to leave before dawn without anyone noticing. The only problem, Onome had never lied to Madam Iretake, not once. The night before the examination, he barely ate. His conscience troubled him, but then he remembered her words. I didn't adopt a son. I acquired a servant. He closed his eyes. This wasn't betrayal. It was survival. At exactly 4 o'clock, instead of heading to sweep the compound, he quietly opened the gate. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure someone would hear it. Every reek of the gate sounded like thunder. He stepped outside, then walked faster until he reached the junction where Mr. Eroto was waiting. The old teacher smiled proudly. I knew you'd come. By 7:30, Onome was sitting inside a huge examination hall in Benin City. Hundreds of brilliant students surrounded him. Some had attended the best private schools. Some arrived with laptops. Some came with tutors and parents encouraging them. Onome had one pen, a borrowed calculator, and a prayer. As the question paper landed on his desk, his heart sank. The questions were difficult, very difficult, for almost everyone around him. Students sighed, some scratched their heads. Others looked defeated, but as Onome read further, a strange calm settled over him. He smiled. Many of the questions resembled the old problems Mr. Eroto had made him solve after school. He picked up his pen and began writing. Back in Ogara, Madam Eretake woke up. Onome! Silence. She frowned. Onome! Still nothing. She marched into his tiny room. Empty. The bed was neatly spread. She stormed outside. Ogenevede! Ejiro! Akpobome! All three rushed out. Where is that boy? Nobody knew. The compound had not been swept. Breakfast had not been prepared. For the first time in years, the family had to do their own chores. They were furious. How dare he disappear? Madam Iretake screamed loud enough for neighbors to hear. If he comes back, I will skin him alive. Onome returned late that evening, exhausted and hopeful. The moment he entered the compound, slap. Madam Iretake struck him so hard that he crashed into the wall. You useless ingrate! Where did you go? Another slap. You think you've become a man? Ogenevede punched him in the stomach. Akpobome kicked him from behind. Even Ejiro picked up a stick and struck his back. You left us to suffer. Neighbors gathered outside the fence. No one intervened. Many had seen this scene too many times. Finally, Madam Iretake pointed toward his room. No food for you tonight. If you ever disappear again, I will throw you out. Onome slowly stood. His lip was bleeding, his ribs hot. Yet, for the first time, he smiled. A small smile, because unlike every other beating, this one had been worth it. 3 weeks later, Mr. Eroto arrived at the compound. He carried a large brown envelope. Madam Iretake opened the gate. What do you want? I'm looking for Onome. What has he done? He passed. She frowned. Passed what? The National Scholarship Examination. Silence. He didn't just pass. Mr. Eroto smiled proudly. He came first. Madam Iretake blinked. First? In Delta State? The teacher shook his head. In Nigeria. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ogenevede burst into laughter. You expect us to believe that? Mr. Eroto calmly handed over the official letter. It bore government seals, signatures, photographs, everything. Onome had won a full scholarship to study engineering at one of the country's most prestigious universities. His tuition, accommodation, book, feeding, everything would be paid. There was even a monthly stipend. Madam Iretake's eyes immediately changed. The anger disappeared. A smile slowly spread across her face. She turned toward the house and shouted loudly, enough for the neighbors to hear. Our son has made us proud, oh! Onome looked at her in disbelief. It was the first time in nearly 20 years she had ever called him our son. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw it clearly. It wasn't pride. It wasn't love. It was calculation. She wasn't celebrating Onome. She was already calculating how this success could benefit her family. Madam Meretake snatched the scholarship letter from Mr. Iwoto's hand and read it again, then a fourth time. The more she read, the brighter her smile became. Not because Onome had finally achieved something, but because she saw money, status, connection, a future investment. She suddenly threw her arms around him. My son! The word sounded strange. So strange that Onome stood frozen for almost 20 years. She had never hugged him, not once. The neighbor standing outside the compound smiled. Oh, look at a mother's joy. Only Onome knew the truth. The hug felt cold than every beating she had ever given him. This is the end of part 1. Did you enjoy it? Would you like me to continue with the part 2 on our next upload? If you would like that, please comment part 2 in the comment section. Also, let me know your thoughts about this story. Thank you very much for watching. Do all the good stuff on the video. Like, comment. If you have not subscribed, why? Please hit the subscribe button. This is not a goodbye, but it is that I'll see you on the next one. And it is a bye for now.